Hello, students, and welcome back to Mr. Armstrong Teaches. Today, Adverbs, the sequel. If you haven't checked out Adverbs Part 1, I highly recommend you do that first. That one covers the more common types of adverbs. The adverbs we're going to be looking at today answer one simple question. To what extent? Adverbs Part 1 answered the questions how, when, and where. This question's a little bit different. There's more. Write this down, because you're going to need to know it. These types of adverbs don't just modify verbs. They can also modify adjectives and other adverbs. We're going to look at a few different examples of how that works in this video. But first, did you write that stuff down? Because there's some more stuff to write down this way. For starters, go ahead and write down this list of common to what extent adverbs. Not, so, very, to, quite, rather, somewhat. These are all words you probably know. You probably use some of these words on the regular. They are common adverbs, and as you can maybe already start to imagine, some of these words are often connected to adjectives or other adverbs, not necessarily verbs. Did you write those down? There's some more less common ones that we'll look at now. There are a bunch of other adverbs that fall into this category and answer the question, to what extent? Here are some other common ones, and maybe you can even think of some others on your own. Can you? You can post yours in the chat below. But next, let's look at some examples of how these work in sentences, how they modify not just verbs, but also potentially adjectives and other adverbs. Let's take a look at this one first. The thing we're most familiar with, modifying a verb. In the sentence, she did not go. We, of course, have a simple subject, and we have a verb phrase, actually, in this sentence, but we also have an adverb. And this adverb is modifying the main verb, and it's telling us to what extent this verb happened. I'm going to mark this sentence up so it's a little easier to understand. She is the simple subject. Did and go are the verbs. Did is a helping verb, helping the verb go. Go is the main verb. Not is an adverb modifying the main verb go, telling us to what extent she did go. To what extent did she go? Not at all. Not is a very common adverb that answers the question, to what extent? This might be the most common one, but I'm not sure anyone's keeping track of things like that. Not every adverb that answers the question, to what extent, can modify a verb. Sometimes they just modify the other two types, adjectives and adverbs. Let's take a look at those. Here's an example of an adverb modifying an adjective. That moose is so big. Once again, I'm going to mark this sentence up so it's a little easier to understand it. Moose is the simple subject. Is the verb. That's the verb to be in its present tense with a singular subject. Big is a predicate adjective. Is, of course, the verb to be is a linking verb, and in this case it's linking a predicate adjective, big, to the subject, moose. But this sentence also contains an adverb, one of the adverbs from the to what extent list, so. In this example, so is modifying the adjective big, telling us to what extent is it big. It is so big. Moose are big. And of course, a lot of those other examples could also be used for adjectives, but not all of them. That moose is somewhat big. That moose is not big. But not all of them will work. Can you think of other ones that do? But let's move on to adverbs and how adverbs can modify adverbs. All right, take a look at this one down here. This is an example of an adverb modifying another adverb. See if you can find it. I'm going to mark up the sentence to make it a little bit easier in just a moment. Laurel ran quite quickly. In this sentence, we know we have a couple of adverbs. So see if you can find one that you've already learned about in adverb video number 1 and see if there's a word from the list that's modifying this adverb. You figure it out? Let's take a look. Laurel is the simple subject of this sentence. Ran is the verb, an action verb. The past tense of the verb to run quickly is an adverb, and it's modifying the verb ran, telling us how Laurel ran. We have one other adverb in this sentence, and that is quite. This is from the to what extent list, and it is modifying how quickly Laurel ran. An adverb modifying another adverb. Get it? And that concludes Adverbs Part 2. Adverbs that answer the question, to what extent? This was a very simple explanation, explaining the different possibilities. The best way, of course, to master this type of adverb is to practice. There are lots of great workbooks out there. If you would like any recommendations, please ask. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them below, or you can ask me in class. I look forward to teaching you again very soon. Have a great rest of your day. Farewell.